It's hard to believe that PlayStation 5 has been out as long as it has. And boy, have we had a plethora of games. Now, love or hate this generation, there's no denying that there are some fantastic games out there that are exclusive to the console. And in today's episode, I'm going to be giving you 10 games that I think are really great games on the PlayStation 5. Some of them are available on other platforms, but me being a predominant PlayStation console player, I figured I'd launch this episode with my beloved PlayStation 5. We're also going to give some honourable mentions, and then there are some really good PlayStation 5 games that I'm still yet to play, that I have the download codes for, but I've just not had time. So please bear with me, get comfy, and I'll include some timestamps to make this episode super easy for you guys to navigate. Also, let me know your top 10 in the comment section as well, but without further ado, let's take a look at my first PlayStation 5 game. Let's talk Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I was hooked on this. Not so much on Remake, although I initially liked Remake better than Rebirth, but the more I dived into Rebirth, the more it really started to grow on me. The emphasis on real-time combat and obviously swapping between different characters and really bolstering out your party made the game feel tangible, and it's one that I simply couldn't put down. I think one day I just sat and played it for around 8 hours one lazy Sunday, a very rare Sunday off for me, but I just could not put it down. And whilst I haven't completed this, I feel like I've played it enough to say that this is a very strong game in the PlayStation 5 lineup. Now, if you're not a fan of the original, don't worry, because neither am I, and that might shock a lot of you. But I think that this game is also great as a standalone. I say this game, of course, it is the direct follow-on from Final Fantasy VII Remake, and we've still got another game to come. So if you weren't a fan of the original, don't let that put you off playing this absolute majestic title. It looks great, sounds great, there's a whole heap of characters to get to know and customise, and I think the combat itself is the definite strong point and pulling power of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the second game in the planned trilogy that encapsulates the beautiful game that we had on the PlayStation 1 in 1997. Albeit I wasn't a huge fan of the original on the PlayStation 1, I have really enjoyed these two games so far, obviously Rebirth being the most recent release. Being able to traverse this beautiful open world on chocobos along with your team and just engage in open world combat rather than the kind of turn-based stuff really added to the dynamism of the game, and I've streamed it in great length. Now for me, Rebirth has given me plenty of fun. I've had what I call my nothing days, where I just sit downstairs in the lady lounge and play to my heart's content, and that is still one that I'm playing through by myself, and I'm absolutely loving it. Now, menus and skill trees for me can often feel a little bit laborious, but in Rebirth, it feels like it adds a lot of value, being able to put different mana on weapons and really play around with that and do the same with all the different characters really does make sure, or really does rather make you feel that you have major control over your party, and I love that element of it. Obviously you play predominantly as Cloud, but the fact that you can interchange between the different characters really does add so much eclectic feel to it, because everyone's got different powers, everyone's at different levels in terms of their magic abilities, and I absolutely love it. Even some of the hardest boss difficulties don't feel too bad, being able to interchange and bring in different party members, even to the kind of 3 that you actually play with. Now, back in 2022, when Gran Turismo 7 launched, I streamed and played the hell out of it and managed to complete the base game. We had some really great numbers on stream. I'm currently streaming on Kick every Friday and Saturday, Sunday night, so come over there if you want to see me play more games such as Gran Turismo 7. Since its launch, Gran Turismo 7 has sold over 100 million units. That is an incredible achievement. And to commemorate that, there is a new update in December 2025 with 8 new tracks, new cars, amongst many more things. But in base format, Gran Turismo 7 will give you a delicious experience. And for me, somebody who is a huge petrol head when it comes to racing games and not so much in real life, I feel like as a casual racer, this is a very user-friendly experience. But I dare say the more knowledgeable drivers out there might be able to tap into the game's fine-tuning of cars a little bit more delicately. And I think that's absolutely fine too, because Gran Turismo 7 provides that balanced experience for the novices as well as the absolute high-end academics of the racing game genre. Now, what I really liked about it is, for me, somebody that doesn't know much about cars, I found it quite user-friendly to be able to just dive in. The menus, again, were really easy to navigate and did a really good job explaining what each part of the car did. Unless you are a car expert, you might have a very different experience, but it was that user-friendliness combined with how good the graphics were, how nice the car sounded, I've always said it, I'm a sucker for a racing game, and Gran Turismo really made me kind of keep coming back. And to this day, my brother, shout out to you, he's constantly asking me, Gem, when are you going to get back on Gran Turismo 7? And what with the amount of free updates that have been released for that game since, I think it might be about time that we pop in Gran Turismo 7 again on my PlayStation 5. Ghost of Yotei, however you pronounce it, it doesn't matter. This is a game that I'm playing through on Kick at the moment. Come and follow me on Kick, it is linked in the description. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. As this video releases on Thursday, we're going to be diving back into this very same weekend. Now, as with Ghost of Tsushima, this game looks stunning. Sucker Punch have done an incredible job at really fleshing out the environments, right down to the individual blades of grass that shimmer, no matter whether you're traversing on foot, or you're riding your horse, or you're just simply still in the game admiring its absolute beauty. Atsu, of course, is a very diverse and powerful character, and as with Tsushima, you can kind of go in, you can kind of fine-tune your attire, fine-tune your weapons, and it is that attention to detail that really does bring Yotei alive. So as this is a PlayStation 5 exclusive, I would highly recommend that you get this. If you're on a PS5 Pro, which I'm not, I'm on base model, I would like to kind of say that it looks stunning on base model, so I can imagine on PS5 Pro it looks even better. And if you've played it on the Pro, let us know what you think in the comment section. But Ghost of Yotei is an incredible game, it's beautiful, the combat feels great, there's lots of side missions to do, which I've been finding myself doing quite a lot of, in particular bounties, and it's a great way to farm that XP, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I really don't want the experience to end. Astro Bot is my next game, a game that really does boast the capability of that DualSense controller. The different worlds that you go to look stunning, the different puzzles that you can come across, lots of different quirks, the sound, everything in that game reminds me of what PlayStation really was about back in the day, because of course if you think back to the likes of Crash Bandicoot on the PlayStation 1, a vibrant game, you know, a great protagonist, lots of fleshed out worlds, lots of intriguing enemies, power-ups, lots of just the world looks stunning. It very much reminds me of the culture of what we see in Astro Bot, of course, released in 2024. There are, of course, 90 levels to fly through on this, and I think you really do get your money's worth, and it adds to that versatilities with the amount of planets that you're also going around, seeing different enemies, fine-tuning the details, looking at all the different colours. I mean, what's not to like with Astro Bot? There's also lots of really cool nods to PlayStation as well, with like all the different like characters. I believe there's a Solid Snake Astro Bot. Again, just bringing together rather the culture of the PlayStation over the years. Obviously, this is a PlayStation 5 exclusive and it's cheap, and if you don't want to play that, you've got the free option of going back to Playroom, because you're still getting lots of value with that again too. So it would be silly of me not to talk about the PlayStation 5 without mentioning Astro Bot in some capacity, and it's one of the games that I feel really blessed to have an experience with, and it can be very difficult in areas. So when I was streaming it, thankfully I had a lot of help from the community to, you know, find the secrets as well, because there's lots of little secrets that you can kind of find, and lots of Easter eggs, lots of really cool things. So thank you to the community for the help on Astro Bot, but you definitely need to check it out. Helldivers 2 was a timed launch on the PlayStation 5. Of course, you can now play it on Xbox, and it feels very different to its original Helldivers. In Helldivers 2, you are launched onto various planets, you are a team of 3, and the environments are procedurally generated. Once launched down into your mission area onto various other planets, you and your team need to venture forward and fight off hordes of enemies. A key feature of the game is to call down what's known as stratagems, which is essentially pockets of equipment that you can attach to yourself. There's various shields you can utilise, basically bolsters the loadout that you take in. So pick your stratagems wisely. Whilst you're on various planets, you're defending against hordes and hordes of enemies along with your teammates, and be sure to collect the correct stratagems to level up your character, because some of these planets can be really tricky, and the aim of the game is to extract, so you've got to kind of meander your way to extraction points, and of course there's lots of loot to be able to collect along the way, and there are other side missions that you can do on the planet, and it just looks and feels great. And of course we have had so many updates with that game. Now again, it's a game that I've streamed and I really enjoyed playing co-op with my friends, and I think it's one of the games to watch. I'm excited to dive back into it. Love or hate The Last of Us 2 Remastered on PlayStation 5 is an absolute masterpiece. I believe that those games are the kind of queens of storytelling. Beautiful story, beautiful characters, great pacing, and again, a lot of people had a little bit of an issue with some of the characters, but I think it was fantastic. And what The Last of Us 2 did really well is throughout the first half of the game you play as Ellie. You really start to dislike, or I really disliked Abby. Then in the second half of the game you start to play as Abby and you learn a little bit more about her, and you actually realise that I realised my feelings for Abby were a little bit harsh, and I started to kind of develop, you know, empathy for her. I felt really sorry for her, and it was that kind of emotional journey that you feel with a game like that. It's an emotional connection, it's beautiful, and I've not played a game that's really resonated with me so much emotionally, to be able to hate one character, then really like one character, and then feel a little bit of trepidation against Ellie, and then, you know, it kind of gets to the end, and I don't want to spoil it for those that haven't played it. I'm sure many of you have, but it took me on a bit of an emotional roller coaster. Now there's that element to the storytelling, but graphically it looks fantastic as well, and it's really sad. We all know what happened, or we should know what happened, but I'm not going to mention it just in case that there's one person on this planet that's watching this episode and hasn't played it and isn't familiar with the storyline. So definitely experience, don't just play it, but experience The Last of Us 2 Remastered on your PlayStation 5s if you do anything in the next 12 months. Silent Hill 2 is one of my favourite horror games of all time. Silent Hill is closely behind it, but something really drew me to Silent Hill 2 back in the day. Maybe it was because we had it on the PlayStation 2, so it was essentially a bolstered version and experience of what I was used to from Silent Hill. So when I heard Blooper Team were remaking Silent Hill 2 for the PlayStation 5, I was very happy. And again, I've mentioned live streams, we've played a lot of Silent Hill 2 on my PlayStation 5, and it just, again, diving back into that world, but seeing it in current gen graphics really made me feel quite nostalgic. It was almost a nostalgic experience that, you know, brought into 2025, and I really like that. And I know we've had a lot of remakes this year, especially on current gen consoles, but I think for me this is one of my favourite. Because again, just going back to those environments and kind of thinking I know where to go, but I don't quite know where to go, and having that whole experience again of wanting to look around and see details that you never saw before. You know, it was a brand new old experience. I very much appreciated that, and of course, being a huge horror buff, this one was a no-brainer for me. Now, Stellar Blade was a little bit of a surprise for me. And thank you to my friend at PlayStation who kindly sent me a code for this, because had he not have sent it, I wouldn't have played it, but I'm really glad he did. Stellar Blade is a post-apocalyptic action-adventure game in which we take on the role of Eve. Now, it's Eve's mission to reclaim Earth from mechs, known as natives, if I've pronounced that correctly. Apologies if I haven't. But I say post-apocalyptic, this game really does boast some stunning environments that are really versatile. Graphically it looks wonderful, and the combat feels fluid as anything. The character design is smart, and the kind of graphical fidelity and shimmer, the textures all really add for a nice fleshed out world amid some high octane combat, which we'll talk about now. Now for me, Stellar Blade taught me a very important lesson, and that was all around timing in combat. Now for somebody that can lack patience in a video game, this game almost forced me to get my timings down to be able to build my gauge using parries and then execute kills. And when you finally master that and you start to execute kills, boy does it hit you right in the dopamine feels. So that's why I continued to play it. And of course, I've mentioned the post-apocalyptic world, which is a theme that I absolutely adore. So going around with the kind of broken down buildings and then into the wider desert areas of Stellar Blade, it really did keep me interested, the variety of levels. And while some of the bosses were very, very difficult, I just kept going back to it. There was something so charming about it that made me want to continue to return without wanting to rage quit too hard. And of course, the character models look absolutely beautiful. Graphically, it looks beautiful. And Stellar Blade is definitely one that you guys should pick up. That's right, Black Myth Wukong, another game that really took me by surprise. Black Myth Wukong was another game that came onto my radar after my friend at PlayStation kindly donated a code. Perhaps one I would have overlooked otherwise, and this is why I wanted to raise it, because it's actually a fantastic game, and if you're into your Souls-like kind of games, this is kind of similar. It's not as vast as any Souls games I've ever played. It's a little bit more linear in that the environments tend to be a little bit more secluded and claustrophobic, and certainly not as open world as they might look. But don't be fooled, the combat on this feels incredible and the graphics look really tasty. Now, speaking of combat, we have the ability to use our staff, which does change size during combat, and there's lots of different focus attacks that can be landed and accumulated and built up depending on how well timed your dodges are, your parrying. So it really does include your ability to be agile. So you need to be very nimble with your fingers. It requires a lot of patience. Some of the bosses can be very tricky, but once you get that rhythm down and your parry and you get used to how the staff maneuvers, the combat can be very satisfying, but it does take some time to get used to. As a huge RPG kind of girl, playing an action role-playing game like this, I thought, I'm really going to like it. And I really, really did. I thought the first area, the kind of foresty area, really kind of built up greens, blacks, browns of the enchantment of the forest really appealed to me. And while some of the later levels didn't appeal to me as much, the basic premise of combat, filling your gauge to be able to just unleash awesome focus attacks, again, hit me right in the dopamine feels. And I think I've enjoyed a lot of games of late that have had really heavy emphasis on combat, such as Dragon Age the Veilguard, a game that not many people like, and I did not care for the story or characters, but in that game, I really liked the combat. You just feel so powerful, and it was the same with Black Myth Wukong. When I'd finally started to learn the different level up abilities, I really started to like it more and more and more. And it was another one of those games that my community really helped me with live on stream. And I'm grateful for that, because otherwise I would have missed some serious objectives and items that really did help me improve my stats. So Black Myth Wukong, what a game, what an experience. One I still do need to complete, admittedly, but definitely check it out. Of course, I am cheating a bit here because Days Gone was released on the PlayStation 4, and that was my primary experience of it. Completed it, almost got platinum, and felt heartbroken when I realised that Ben's studio actually had a sequel planned, but unfortunately PlayStation canned it to focus on Concord, which of course was an absolute disaster within the last year, but we won't go there. So Remastered came out, and of course we have a remastered game of an already existing masterpiece with higher fidelity graphics, and I believe there was PlayStation VR support. So that is definitely one that you need to get your hands on if you're a PlayStation 5 owner. Of course, if you're a PS5 Pro owner, you get that extra little bit of finesse on this one. Now let's talk about some honourable mentions. For me, I've picked 3. Spider-Man 2 builds on everything that came before it. The introduction of Miles, being able to swap between the two characters, again, really does add a little bit of versatility, as both Spider-Men have slightly different feels and vibes and powers and abilities. Now again, if you've played the first, you can expect massive open world experiences within New York City. Famous sites in Manhattan, Queens and Brooklyn are also available, so whether or not you've been to New York City, you should be familiar with some of these amazing sites, which provides excellent opportunities for traversal and excellent opportunities to come across some combat in some very familiar faces-based enemies. So Spider-Man 2 is an honourable mention, and that's because I prefer the first game that little bit more, but nonetheless, this is a definite must to play if you've got a PlayStation 5. Demon's Souls along with Dark Souls 3 are my favourite games in the Souls series. I first played this back on the PlayStation 3 and I absolutely loved it. This remake was a launch title alongside the PlayStation 5 and was developed by a Japan studio. Obviously, it's originally from Software, but I think they've done a great job, and the game features lots of new little tidbits of information, weapons, armor, etc. It doesn't really add much value to the game, but I absolutely love the way this game looks and feels. It's a massive upstep from the graphical muddiness, if you would, from the PlayStation 3 era. And again, if you like your Souls games, this is one that you do need to play. As with any Souls games, it is very punishing. Permadeath is real. Well, it's not permadeath unless you can get back to your pile of souls with all your weapons in, but it can be very difficult at times, so this does take a bit of patience, but when you master it, it's incredibly rewarding. Fine, I hear you, this came out on PS4, but we had the director's cut that came out on the PlayStation 5, one of the most stunning games, I believe, ever made on a PlayStation console. This, for me, is slightly better than Yotei, and the reason I didn't put it in my top 10 is because we included Yotei, which I'm currently playing through, but I do think because this was the first of the series, it will always carry a special place in my heart, as many of you have told me live on stream. So yes, Ghost of Tsushima, thought I'd kind of mention that as an honourable mention because we've already mentioned Yotei, and for me the games are very similar in their aesthetics and gameplay mechanics, but I do think Tsushima did help to crown the PlayStation 5 in what we have today. So they're my 3 honourable mentions. I thought I'd mention Ghost of Tsushima in that list and not in my top 10 because Yotei has just come out and the games feel very, very similar. But I think Ghost of Tsushima really did help to solidify the PlayStation 5 legacy, albeit a very small legacy in comparison to previous consoles, but it's still up there and still needs a mention in this episode. And now for games that I know are absolutely awesome because I've seen and read reviews, but I still haven't played them. Death Stranding 2 is, as it stands, in my inbox in the form of a download code. I do need to install this, I just haven't had time, but as it stands, according to Google, there is a 94% approval rate on this game. It seems pretty basic in its premise, just traversing hardcore land, navigating various obstacles, meeting characters that look freaking awesome. I mean, it seems so simplistic in its gameplay mechanics, and I know a lot of you guys have sunk hours into this, so it's really piqued my interest having just sat back and listened to what the community have had to say about Death Stranding. Now, I've played a little bit of Death Stranding the first, and I feel like the second one is going to deliver, and when I get time, I would love to dive into this. Hellblade 2 really intrigues me because I really enjoyed the first. It's quite a dark game, the first, based on their kind of mental health, psychosis. It's quite dark in its themes, and playing with a headset on, for me, that game with all the kind of voices in the headset really added to that immersion of the characters' psychotic episodes. I really love the theme of as well, that kind of Nordic vibe, kind of Vikingsy kind of aesthetic. So I know this didn't get amazing reviews, but I'm kind of like, I'm not overly fussed on that. I want to play it and experience it for myself. And again, it's another one of those when have I got the time. So if you've played it, I'd really like to know your experiences because it's just intrigued me from the minute I heard that it was kind of coming out. So yeah, they are my 2 games that I still need to play in this genre of gaming. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate it. It's really nice to do some PlayStation 5 content, and if there's anything else you'd like to see, leave a comment below. But for now, I hope you guys have an awesome day, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.